Thank you guys for joining us. We are back for episode 2 of Dan going through the big book, and today we're going to talk about and cover Bill's story.
Great, thanks, Logan. It's very important. Bill Wilson obviously is one of the co-founders of AA, and last last episode we were talking about the doctor's opinion and everything. So, in the book, it's scheduled to have Bill's story right now, and just it's just a setup until then. We're going to go through the actual work in the future episodes of how we actually recover. But as anyone who knows me, I like to always say there's a meter that runs in our lives with the problem of alcohol. In the beginning, where it's very much 95% control and fun and very little trouble. And Bill's story is a classic example of that. So even early on, um, he even mentions, as he got his job down in Wall Street. He calls it the drive for success was on. He was very excited. He was a type of person who was looking up stocks and so forth for investors to invest in, and there was a lot of money being made. You're talking about now in the 1930s, so the market was pretty good at first, as we'll see what's going to happen though. So, but one of the things he says here, which is very interesting, he says out of this alloy of drink and speculation, I commenced to forge a weapon that would one day turn in its flight like a boomerang and all but cut me to ribbons. In the 12 and 12, he mentions that as what he calls the rapacious creditor. And what that means is that, we're really excited when we drink. We're having a lot of fun. Everything seems good. It's exciting. Him down in Wall Street, he's in the bars with people talking high finance, but we don't realize that what's happening at this is actually going to eventually turn around and rob us of everything. Much more. He calls it the rapacious creditor, meaning it's loaning us good times, but when it comes back as the loan shark or creditor take back those good times, it's going to be 10 times worse than whatever he gave you. So he really just goes on, and that's what starts happening. He really even says in there, I have arrived. But he does mention that drink was taking an important part, an exhilarating part in his life, because that's how it is down in the Wall Street area. Everybody's excited down in the bars, and they're drinking. But his drinking started to assume more serious proportions, continuing all day and almost every night. And I can identify with that. I know what it's like as we start going. We think we got control, but we start to lose control because we find ourselves down there drinking every night. It's going on. We don't believe that we're ever going to lose control, but this disease eventually starts taking that away from us.
So, a cool question I would have for you, Dan, is your story actually has some parallels to Bill's when it comes to Wall Street. And if you guys want to hear more about that, please tune in to Nothing's Off the Table podcast where Dan was on. But to follow up with my question, how does someone who's around people who are drinking in the drug world find a way to detach from that? Do you have any advice for that?
Well, I would say it's very, very important also, especially if you're early in recovery, is not to put yourself, as they say, you don't go hang around in a barber shop unless you're expecting to get a haircut. So, of course, it can be difficult as your job and things might get you there. But if you're new in recovery, you need to settle yourself and get a good control of where you're at before you're there. Um, because it's too easy to fall prey for that. So the best places, they tell you, avoid people, places, and things when you're first starting out, and you should do that. So, but as far as Bill's going on, certain things that he says, and I can identify with being in Wall Street. He began to feel jittery in the morning, and I remember not knowing anything about alcoholism or anything, but I knew I was starting to feel a little jittery. So I knew that if I had a Bloody Mary at 10:30 in the morning, it settled me down. Why? I had no idea, but I did it anyway, and that's what I wound up doing. So, and he did that. So, what happened to him down there, though, in Bill's story is in October of 1929, all hell breaks loose down on the stock market. It's a crash. And all these people that he knows are panicking. Some people are actually jumping out windows. But he, as he says in here, as I drank, and of course he went to the bar to drink to talk about it, that old fierce determination to win comes back. And many of us have that are in uh, alcohol and so forth, we still believe that, we're going to win and we're going to do something. And that's what his story does. But drinking would catch up with him again. The meter is moving now. He's at a point where it's becoming less control and more trouble for him. So he even says liquor ceased to be a luxury, it became a necessity. So that meter is moving along. And I know that feeling, and most alcoholics do, where all of a sudden we have to have that drink. So he still thought he excuse me, he still thought he could control the situation. Self knowledge, I'll be able to handle it. But things would get worse. It would just get worse. Then he went on a prodigious bender, and that chance vanished. He was going to get another job. So he woke up. This had to stop. I saw I could not take as much one drink. I would not drink again, he thinks. He thinks willpower is going to be able to solve it. And many of us do. We're like, you know what? I am who I am. I'm successful. I'm not going to drink. And that's it. But as we know, it doesn't happen that way. Self knowledge is not enough. Shortly after that, he came home drunk again. The meter was moving. He had that mental obsession that comes in. Maybe it'll be different this time. Maybe it won't, but it never is. So the morning horror, the hopelessness, it just starts getting worse, and we start feeling hopeless. Um, so this went on for years with him, very, very long period of time. Eventually, he wound up in a hospital, and he met Dr. Silkworth, who we spoke about in the doctor's opinion. He meets him along the ways, and he starts telling him all about the allergy, and that if you take the first drink, you can't stop. So he's like a lot of us are. Okay, I don't have to take the first drink. I got it. Self knowledge. Once again, he thinks that's the answer. But sure enough, the frightful day comes again, and he's drunk again. It just goes on and on with him. He's getting worse and worse. Uh, I, who had thought so well of myself, my abilities, of my capacity to surmount obstacles, was cornered at last. He's really collapsing now. The loneliness, the despair he found in his self pity. Quicksand stretched all around me in all directions. I had met my match. I was overwhelmed. How dark it is before the dawn, though. Many of us know when I hit that uh, homeless shelter. I was so hopeless. It was terrible. How was I ever going to get my kids back? How was I ever going to be able to make money again, do anything? So, but that's what starts happening. We soon start to feel that something could happen. And he says in here, I would be catapulted into what is called the fourth dimension. I was to know happiness, peace, and usefulness in a way of life that is incredibly more wonderful as time passes. So what happened is one of his friends, Ebby, comes over to his house and starts talking with him, um, and starts telling him all about what he needs to do. Now, Ebby starts talking about religion, and Bill wants nothing to do with religion. Um, but it was that moment that started Bill to start realizing that there was hope. This guy wasn't ranting or raving; he was just casually talking to him, um, just to pass his experience on, and that's what we do here. So this was the start of Bill starting to change. Okay, um, he started thinking, to Christ I conceded the certainty of a great man, but not too closely followed by those who claimed him, his moral teachings. But he was doubtful that he really needed to find a power greater than himself. But here sat before him a friend, and he made a point blank declaration that God had done for him what he could not do for himself. He admitted uh, complete defeat. So this is when it started with Bill. He started to think about. He started to maybe believe that. So the big thing that happened is because Bill was doubtful of God, and Ebby told him, "Why don't you just choose your own conception of God? Don't get lost in trying to be religious or anything like that." And that hit him hard. Uh, he stood in the sunlight at last. It was only a matter of willing to believe in a power greater than myself. Nothing more was required. This is the second step of Alcoholics Anonymous. We come to believe. We haven't found the power yet, what we believe that we can find it. Now he goes on and basically quickly in one session, he humbly offered himself to God as I understood him, to do with me as he would. I placed myself reversedly under his care and direction. I admitted for the first time that I of myself was nothing. Without him, I was lost. I ruthlessly faced my sins and became willing to have a newfound friend. He's actually going through the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, and eighth steps all at once. Not all of us are going to do it that quickly, but here we see Bill recovering, and it's great. I would sit quietly when in doubt, asking only for direction. So belief in the power of God plus enough willingness, honesty, and humility to establish and maintain a new order of things were essential requirements. So it was here when and Bill had what he called his white light experience. God comes to most men gradually, but his impact was sudden and profound. That's what happened to me up in Graymore, um, and it can happen for you too. But it doesn't have to be that. It can be slow and gradual. So
No, Dan, that was amazing. And what I would say is back to that point of him finding God, Dan would tell you he did that because he cleared his spiritual cholesterol. So I don't know if you have anything else to add today, Dan, but if you want to hear more about Dan, we're going to continue to do episodes together of deep dives into the big book, as well as Nothing Off the Table will release a podcast episode with Dan coming up later this month. And lastly, Dan, would you like to talk about your new book?
new book is out, and basically, this book is called Clearing Spiritual Cholesterol, and it's about removing the blocks inside you that are denying you the ability to awaken to the spirit that is within you. God is within you. And I give clear cut directions on how to deal with resentments, forgiveness, how to make living amends. I would recommend uh, get a copy of this book. It's a very up to date way to really go through the fourth step. And I think it is really has some good stuff in there. So, so today we covered a lot of material. It's very difficult to do it quickly. But Bill's story is a classic example of somebody's meter ran all the way and he went all the way to the bottom. But then he comes back. And that's the beauty of the meter. It comes back the other way when you find the hidden spirit in you. God bless. Next, we'll be talking about There Is a Solution.
Awesome. Thank you, Dan.